Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and see if we can decode what's actually going on beneath the surface of your teenager's behavior. If you've got a teenager at home, well, you already know adolescence is a time of just massive, constant transition. But as a parent, trying to figure out if your kid is just going through a typical moody phase or if they're genuinely struggling with their mental health, that can be incredibly daunting. So our focus today is to break down the complex reality of teen anxiety into its absolute core material, keeping it super easy to understand and digest.
Right, so is it just teen angst or something more? Literally every parent asks this exact question when the door starts slamming and those infamous mood swings kick in. But here's the truth. Spotting the real issue means you have to look way below the surface. A lot of teens just won't come out and tell you they feel anxious. Honestly, they might not even have the emotional vocabulary to articulate it yet. So they might just look unmotivated or just plain angry, when in reality, they are completely overwhelmed.
To get to the bottom of this, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, normal stress versus teen anxiety. Second, the 10 warning signs. Third, causes of anxiety. Fourth, how parents can respond. And finally, treatment options.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, Normal Stress versus Teen Anxiety, Spotting the Baseline Difference. So there's a really crucial difference we need to establish right off the bat. Normal stress is, your teenager being nervous about a huge math test or having a momentary freak out over a fight with a friend. It's tied to a specific event, and eventually it passes. Clinical anxiety disorders, though, that feels like a persistent, heavy blanket. It's incredibly difficult for them to control, and it actively starts impairing their daily life. The goal here isn't to rush to a medical diagnosis every single time they stress out, but rather to notice the patterns that just won't go away. Moving on to Section 2, the 10 hidden warning signs. Let's look at what anxiety actually looks like in teens. You see, adolescent anxiety is sneaky. It frequently hides in very unexpected ways. You might notice your teen pulling away, skipping club meetings, or just spending all their free time alone in their room. They're basically using avoidance as a shield. You might also catch them constantly asking you for reassurance. Things like, "Are you sure I didn't mess up?" or "Are you absolutely sure I'll be okay?" But the catch is, the relief you give them, it never lasts. That continuous loop is actually a defense mechanism they rely on to try and manage their own internal distress.
And it's not all in their heads either. Anxiety manifests physically, and let me tell you, these symptoms are very real to them. Frequent complaints of stomach aches, nausea, or tension without any real medical cause, classic hidden signs. On top of that, all this internal stress absolutely wreaks havoc on their sleep and their cognition. If they seem totally distracted, forgetful, or are suddenly struggling to just finish basic schoolwork, it might look a lot like laziness to an outsider. But in reality, their brain is just completely preoccupied with an overwhelming sense of worry.
Now here's where the iceberg gets really deep, and honestly, where parents are most often caught off guard. Instead of looking fearful or timid, an anxious teen might actually appear highly irritable, argumentative, and just easily frustrated by the tiniest disappointments. Another huge masquerade for anxiety is perfectionism. If your teen is overstudying, completely terrified of making even a tiny mistake, or demanding rigid control over their routines, that's often a desperate attempt to create some kind of safety and predictability in a world that feels totally out of their control.
Okay, Section 3. What causes teen anxiety? Let's unpack the complex mix of triggers. There is rarely, if ever, one single cause for a teen's anxiety. It's basically a perfect storm. You've got biology and genetics playing a huge role, right? Combine that with the massive developmental and hormonal changes of adolescence. Then throw in intense academic pressure, the relentless 24/7 nature of social media, and maybe some family conflict or past trauma, and you have an incredibly heavy load for a developing brain to carry. Recognizing this whole mix helps us as adults step back, stop placing blame, and move toward offering genuine, helpful support.
Which brings us to Section 4, how parents can respond, providing a safe harbor.
When you're in the thick of it, I want you to remember this. Parents do not need perfect words or instant solutions. In many cases, the most helpful response is steady, calm, and curious. I find that wonderfully reassuring, don't you? When your teen is spiraling, you don't need a master's degree in psychology, and you don't need the perfect piece of advice locked and loaded. Just your regulated, calm presence is infinitely more powerful than any lecture you could possibly give.
So how do we turn that into actionable steps? First up, your primary job is to stay calm. That instantly prevents the situation from escalating. Second, just listen. Teens open up so much more when they don't feel like they're being immediately judged or fixed. Third, step back and look at the broader patterns over a few weeks, rather than overreacting to one really bad Tuesday. And finally, maintain consistent routines at home. Predictability is a natural antidote to anxiety because it naturally diffuses a teen's desperate need for control.
Finally, Section 5, Effective Treatment Options, the professional tools for lasting relief. If you're at the point of seeking professional help, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is widely considered the gold standard approach. And this isn't just about sitting on a couch and talking. It's very action-oriented. CBT directly equips your teen with highly practical tools to actually recognize their own fearful thoughts, challenge them with reality, and build real coping mechanisms. It essentially helps them untangle their own mind and find a healthy middle ground, rather than always defaulting to that worst-case scenario thinking.
Alternatively, there's this fascinating model called space therapy, and what's truly unique here is that space is entirely parent-focused. Yup, instead of putting the teenager in the therapy chair, the therapist works strictly with the parents. It trains you to systematically shift how you respond to your child's anxiety, specifically by cutting back on all the subtle ways you might be accidentally accommodating or enabling their avoidance. By changing your behavior, it indirectly yet powerfully empowers the teen to start managing their own emotions. It's a real game changer.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question to chew on. The next time a door slams in your house, or the next time your teen snaps at you over something seemingly trivial, will you just react to the anger on the surface? Or will you grab your metaphorical magnifying glass and investigate that heavy, exhausting anxiety that might be hiding underneath? Because by looking deeper, you might just be giving your teenager exactly the lifeline they've been silently asking for.